What do we mean when we use the term digital experiences in the context of customer communications? Today at Above the Treeline, I have a guest, Alan Berger with InfoSlips, and we're going to talk about what we mean when we say transitioning from paper-based communications to digital experiences. What are digital experiences in this context? And so I'm thrilled to have Alan with us here today. Alan, thank you for joining me.
No, it's great to be here, and thank you for the invite, Andy. Looking forward to having a chat.
You know, Alan, I think you might get the award for the most interesting company we've never heard of, at least in the CCM space. Maybe that's just a US thing, but I think we came across one another on LinkedIn about 6 months ago. You had commented on a post, and I started to dig into InfoSlips and what your company was doing, and it's fascinating. And in fact, I sort of didn't believe it with my own eyes when I first saw it. And really, that's the point of today's episode of Above the Treeline, is to really dig into this idea of digital experiences. What do we mean when we say digital experiences? And what InfoSlips represents, in my view, is the direction we are headed in terms of creating digital experiences for customer communications, customer interactions. It's really around, again, moving away from this idea of communications being bound by a page, right? It's around communications not necessarily starting or coming from a production print workflow, which is where a lot of stuff comes from today. And it's really about sort of moving, I guess, further upstream in the business in terms of where those communications are coming from and being initiated and being created. And then from a customer perspective, consumer perspective, I see it as, number one, often when you look at digital experiences and the companies that are developing digital experiences, one of the first things they do is, hey, we got to know our customer, right? They got to know the customer. They got to validate the customer. So these experiences are starting from a relationship that is trusted and known. And so when we have that, customers feel more secure. Their experience can be more personalized. They can sort of put the information and consolidate the information they need in one place. And to me, that's sort of getting at defining what is a digital experience. So, Alan, I'd love for you to share with us sort of your views on how you think about digital experiences, and to share with us a little bit more about your background in InfoSlips.
Thanks, Andy. You hit on a lot of important points there. A lot of people, when they think of digital, especially in the terms of documents and transactional communications, think of it as a digitized version of the paper. And for me, it's more fundamental than that. What you need to do is you need to make that document valuable to the recipient. Now, that might sound like a simple statement, but if you really start unpacking that a little bit, what that really means is that we want to make something that works and navigates and looks and feels the same as all the other stuff they're already doing on their mobile phone or on a website. Now, if I rewind a little bit and we look at a digitized piece of paper, it doesn't give that experience. I mean, if you've ever been on your mobile phone and you've looked at a digital document, say it's a PDF, for example, you're pinching, you're zooming, you're trying to get to that content. It's not giving you the same experience that you're getting from all the other applications. And so what we did, and you know, you introduced us in saying you'd never heard about us, you know, up until 6 months ago. But really, we've been around for quite a long time, but not in the US, as you also mentioned. You know, we have, you know, we started well over 20 years ago, and with this mission, and in the African and Southern African and in some other places around the globe, we've been very successful. For some reason that we can always unpack, we only came to the US recently. With the mission really to bring the technology here, you know, to bring what we've done at 3,000 other implementations around the globe. But I also want to say PDF's done really well, and it's done a lot of very valuable things, and you know, it's become a cornerstone of a lot of things. But if you look at that, if you come back to where you started on the digital experience, it doesn't give the best experience, and it doesn't always fit in with the way a company does business and their workflows, and you know, the way that they want to engage the client. And so our real, I think, aha moment, or our sort of core idea was that, can we still create a document that in all legal terms, compliance terms, and storage, etc., is a document, but it delivers a digital experience first. In other words, what it does something that looks like the mobile app, works like the web portal that I already have. Can I give a digital something that's really engages that customer first? It's first and foremost a user experience, but behind the scenes or underpinning it is still a digital document. That means it's immutable, it's archivable, it's a legal statement of record. And that's really was the key idea around InfoSlips. And so
I think one of the things that I think, again, people may want to understand is, okay, where does this fit? Where does, I get PDF, right? People have been working with PDF and sort of these production workflows for ages, right? Where does the info, once we understand it, how does it sort of plug in to sort of today's world in terms of, companies still are in largely a PDF, AFP, environment, and they're saying, yes, we do want to deliver more engaging digital customer experiences, but how do you make that bridge? So
we fundamentally start at the same place where a digital document, as for example a PDF, would start, and that is at the point where we're getting data, we're turning it into a document, and we are then making it available to the customer or recipient or the viewer, user of that particular document. So that doesn't change, that workflow doesn't change. The difference is that when the person gets to view that document, whether it's in their mobile app on the bank or insurance, or whether it's from an email or from a text message, regardless, those things are still the way that you'd notify and get documents to people. But when you actually get to that experience of opening the document, instead of having this page paradigm that opens in front of them, and this, we spoke about the pinching and zooming and not the great experience. Let's give them a great experience, but it's still a document aspect of it. So if we look at what we've got here, and I'm going to remind you every time when you look at this, because this happens to me all the time, is that this looks like a mobile on the left-hand side, and it looks like a desktop version of a website on the right-hand side. And that's by design. You want something that looks and works the same as what the customer normally gets. But I just want to remind you that behind the scenes here, this is actually a document with all the attributes and all the stuff that we spoke about. It's an immutable statement of record legal document. Left over here, we have a mobile version of a document. And you will see on the right-hand side, it's the exact same document being rendered. And because of this being using web technologies, it's responsive. It's going to change to work on any device seamlessly and easy for me to to navigate. And it's also not going to navigate the same way as a page, where you've got to go page after page. You can use things like menus and so forth to navigate to different sections of this, the same way that you would on any other app or mobile website. And that is that I'm going to change to completely go to a different kind of document here. This happens to be a bank statement with lots of different information on it. I'm not here to give you a full demo of the statement, but it's a statement that has things like checkings and savings and credit card details on here. But maybe what I want to do is just talk to my document. So in this case, you bring in AI. AI is the big rage at the moment. LLMs are pervasive in a lot of technology there. So we've taken that approach of saying, how can we apply this to documents? How can we allow you to talk to your document? I spoke about turning documents into conversations. In this particular case here, I can do simple things like just ask it to list my balances, and it will show me my balances. Or I can do much more things and say, I missed a payment. What should I do next? As an example experience.
So a digital experience is truly digital first. So the approach is, it's a digital first approach to deliver a compelling digital experience, rather than starting from a print focused starting point to then try and, as I used to say, as when I was a product manager, torture those files to deliver a, some kind of digital paperless.
Yes. It's always a compromise. You used a very important point. If you start from paper and you try and make it work well, it's always a compromise. It's always something that is not going to never reach the level of something that was designed for mobile first or for a web first. Paper is always going to be, if you're trying to add interactivity and other elements, well, there's been some good attempts and some clever technology. It's still fundamentally a compromise. You can't give the best experience to that customer.
And maybe if you could, Alan, talk also about this idea of a document of record, right? And I think, again, where we've come from in the industry is that electronic version of that document should match the printed version of the thing that I would have received in the mail. And in fact, I lived in the world where companies would literally, hold them up on the screen and go, they have to match
Yes.
exactly. I mean, literally pixel for pixel.
Yes. Legislation all around the globe, the places we do business, and here in the US, and you look at what people think of as statement of record, there's some false equivalences or some things that people have. This thing of the document has to look exactly the same as the paper version. We haven't found that anywhere in law. There are other rules that says that, other rules that you need to follow. Document must be immutable. If I look at it today, in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, the document must be the same. The document, I must be able to take that document if somebody walks in for an audit or and wants a whole group of documents, I must be able to give that to them, and it must be the exact same document that I gave to them. And from a real technical level, for anybody that's technical, byte for byte, that document must be the same as it was the day it was created. And then also, it must not be changeable in terms of that people can't be editing and messing with it. But at the end of the day, it's still a document. If you look at a legal statement of record, or you look at what regulations say in different parts of the world, they will say things about how long it must be kept for, that it must be a lot of places it must be encrypted, okay, with certain standards and minimum standards. That's not the same everywhere in the world, but there's encryption standards, and there's storage standards, and then there's audit standards, and effectively we meet all of those, and an interactive document can meet all of those without having to look like a piece of paper as it starts. I do want to just add one little asterisk on there. People still want to print stuff.
Right,
so
sure.
Even an interactive document.
Sign me up. I love to print stuff.
Sure. So we're not saying it's digital or print. We're saying, if you're looking at this digital document, give me the best experience on the mobile. Give me the best experience on the desktop. If I hit that print button, I want to see something that looks like my traditional print. Okay, because that's what I want to store, that's what I want to keep, file away, or that's what I need to provide to a third party. But when it comes to viewing the actual document itself, as you can see on the screen in front of you, you can do something that looks and works more holistically, fits in with the digital transformation that an organization is already doing. They spend all this money on their mobile apps, on their websites, on their self-serve portals, and then they give communication that looks like it came from a different company. In fact,
I wanted to touch on that's really fascinating is the whole conversation about preference management, right? Today, when we do preference management, right, you go to your service provider and say, well, I want statements, received this way, and I want alerts sent this way, and I want, account updates, mail. It's sort of the customer sort of has to go to the service provider and say, this is how I would like to experience communications you have for me, right? It seems to me that, in this world, your preference management is entirely in the hands of the user, right?
Yes,
am I
correct.
wrong about that?
No, you're very important. In a lot of documents, we'll actually have the preference management as part of the document you receive, because we're now in a two-way world where a PDF is much seen as sort of push to send and forget kind of idea. We see often a digital document as just the start of that experience for the customer. In fact, with interactive documents, it's not this technology that we're showing today. It's also about designing the right document and ultimately making the document work for me and be valuable to me. Because once it's valuable to me, here's the strange thing. It's valuable to the sending, more valuable to the sending organization as well. If they know I'm engaging with the document and they know that I'm using the document. Now, if they want to do other things like maybe get me to pay or to cross-sell something to me or to reduce volumes to their call centers, to save, all those things only become possible if the document I'm getting is of value to me.
In my view, what you're describing, this is sort of where CCM and CXM, right, where the customer communications merges with customer experience, and that's obviously, people talk a lot about that in our industry, is the customer experience is really, drives engagement, drives retention, drives higher margins, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So delivering that customer experience, and I think the piece for me that as a consumer that I find compelling is that I am in control of that experience, right? I get to define how I want to absorb this information. If I want to print it, I can print it. If I want to completely have a digital experience as on my mobile app or on my laptop, it's sort of up to me at any time, anywhere, how I want to experience that interaction with that service provider.
But I find that customer experience, they and digital transformation, they spend a lot of effort, they spend a lot of money on that, but they kind of divorce it from their transactional communication. So they kind of leave CCM out of that loop. They're saying, well, the CCM and all my bank statements or my insurance documents or whatever it may be, I'm still going to do the other way, and I'm also still going to store that as a PDF, because for some reason, on no legal basis or no logical basis, actually, people have come to the conclusion that they have to store this PDF as the statement of record. Right. That's not at its core very true. You have to have an immutable and all those attributes we spoke about statement of record, but you can store an interactive document as your statement of record. And why do I mention that? Because now you get to the point where CCM and CXM are the same thing.
What I hear often is that, the only category of customer experience management that talks about paper and print is CCM. If you go into the bigger, broader customer experience management ecosystem, which is massive, we are the only industry that talks about print. None of the other one. When it comes to customer experience, nobody else talks about print. Approaching it digitally first, as opposed to sort of staying, as you described. A lot of companies just say, well, when it comes to communications, we're kind of leave that alone because of why? Because it's print, right? They're still bound to these sort of documents, 8.5 by 11 A4 size pages, and have a really hard time divorcing themselves from that reality. If you can flip this around and say, hey, take the digital first approach, we can still solve the print question on the back end. We can still deliver the PDF on the back end, but you're approaching it from a digital first perspective. And this is
I don't position ourselves as digital versus print, where I see a lot of the industry does that. It is digital with print, and it's about choices, and it's about giving that customer what he wants when they want it. Everything you've said today.
You mentioned the term immutable, and I think that's a term that a lot of people probably, to me, when you say that, I think blockchain. That's kind of where my brain goes. But
sure.
I think immutable is a term that is highly relevant because when, in our research, we find that consumers are, I'm worried about data privacy. I'm worried about security. I'm worried about authenticity, I think is really the big one, that really what consumers are saying is authenticity. When you say immutable, what do you mean by immutable?
I mean that statement of record documents, which a lot of people use PDFs for this, but it's not the only thing that gives it. When I talk about immutable, I'm talking about documents that are fundamentally byte for byte the same as the day they were created. You look at these digital documents, people often think of that behind the scenes there's a database or there's some kind of system behind it. And when they think of a PDF, they think there's a file behind it. Well, with an interactive document, you can think of it in the same way. Behind this is a file, an immutable file. You don't need the source system. If most of the customers that will look at, in 5 years' time, the customer might be running a completely different backend or different ERP or a different whatever the source of this data was. If you look at the PDFs, they'll be the same. You look at InfoSlips, they'll be the same. So, PDFs are very good at doing immutable stuff, and interactive documents are equally good at doing it. I think the other thing that maybe some people don't realize, and maybe this is a fundamental thing we haven't spoken about, is that a PDF document, at the time that you create, taking the data and turning the document, you're actually rendering it into the file. So effectively, there's 10 pages. There are 10 pages of information. If you're using the logos and things, you're rendering that in different places. With a digital document, you can take a different approach. You can actually say, well, I'm going to put the data into that file, and I'm going to put the instructions for how to render that into that file. And so what that means then is that that file can do things like allow people to, when I open my interactive document, I can export stuff out to Excel because the data is there. I can change the way it looks because I'm a person with a certain disability. I can really change this document to work the way the user wants, which is the same things that the same problems and the same challenges that companies face on their mobile and web apps. Okay, and so we just want to bring that to the digital document domain.
So, Alan, what's next for InfoSlips?
I think we're at the start of this journey, not the end of this journey. And what do I mean by that? I really mean that in the same way that customer experience is evolving, in the same way that new technologies are coming, What's always excited me personally about being here and why I've managed to stay in this one role for as long as I have, and I'm as excited today, if not more so than when I started, was the fact that interactive documents give you the opportunity to keep on adding to that experience and keep on adding to those documents the new and relevant technologies that come along. Okay, so we don't know exactly what the future holds in 5 years. Look, there's a lot of AI and so forth, and we're embracing that. But who knows, 5 years from now, we're going to be doing stuff holographically, or who knows what the next invention is. But what I can tell you is that because we're a modern technology delivering interactive document, we'll be looking at those and adding those to the product as we go along. And that's how we've got to the point of where we are.
So I guess maybe the questions that I kind of just to wrap things up is, so you're now operating in the United States. You're actively engaging with customers here in the U.S. and open for business, I guess, so to speak.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, we are, and we've got some great. We've got some nice tenant customers here. We've got some great use cases here, and we've established some very strong partnerships. So, really looking forward to bringing this to the U.S. market.
Alan, I really appreciate your time today, sharing with us about InfoSlips. It's very exciting. It's going to be fun to watch InfoSlips in the marketplace. I really, again, thank you, and I wish you all the best. And I'm going to look forward to watching your success.
Thank you, and yeah.